Morning. You're tuning into the Board of County Commissioners agenda setting work session. It is Tuesday, March 1st, 2022. It is 9:03 a.m. This meeting is being televised. For public attendance, you may follow along on the Thurston County YouTube channel or join by calling 360-252-9020, PIN number 1234. I am Carolina Mejia, Chair of the Board. I am joined today by Vice Chair Ty Menser, as well as Commissioner Gary Edwards, County Manager Ramiro Chavez, and Assistant County Manager Robin Campbell, as well as Prosecutor John Thunheim and Auditor Mary Hall, as well as other staff members. First things first, I will pass this on to the County Manager.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I amended the agenda that you have before you yesterday afternoon. That's 24 hours, less than 24 hours, when we submitted to the public for review. So I will recommend the board to approve the agenda as presented.
Questions, commissioners, comments about the agenda?
My only question would be, are we okay, facing all the scrutiny that we're facing? Can we do this by making this motion and proceeding in this fashion? Can we waive the 24-hour notice? I guess that's a question to council.
Yes, it is, Commissioner. You've had the agenda posted 24 hours in advance, and what you're doing is in the beginning of this meeting, where the agenda properly called for the time of this meeting and the purposes of this meeting, you have the authority to amend the agenda at the beginning of this meeting.
Okay, thank you.
I don't think I caught, what was the add?
I added the number one executive session that was not included on the agenda that was posted 24 hours in advance.
Okay, so you need a motion?
Yes, sir.
I would move to approve the amended agenda for the today's agenda setting work session, Tuesday, March 1st, 2022.
And I would second that addition of the executive session.
It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote.
Commissioner Edwards?
Aye.
Commissioner Menser?
Aye.
Commissioner Mejia?
Aye. Okay. The updated agenda has been approved. The first two items on our agenda this morning are executive sessions, so we are taking a little different step this morning. The first executive session is RCW 42.30.110, subsection 1I, to discuss with legal counsel representing the agency matters relating to agency enforcement actions, Community Action Council. The second executive session is executive session per RCW 42.30.110, subsection 1I, to discuss with legal counsel representing the agency litigation or potential litigation, REIT 1 funding for 3000 Pacific Avenue. So with that, those two executive sections should take us 40 minutes. Is that?
Yeah, that is the hope, Commissioner, for both combined. Yeah.
For both combined. So we will be addressing these two matters in executive session. And with that,
yep. Let me close the video and we'll start. Give me a second.
Commissioner.
Go ahead, ma'am.
And we are back from executive session. We are extending this executive session for 30 more minutes. And do I have to read the RCWs again?
No, ma'am.
Okay, and so we will be heading back. Thank you.
Give us a second.
You're live?
We are back from executive session. You're tuning into the Board of County Commissioners agenda setting work session. It is 10:13 a.m. and we were in executive session for two different items. The first one, it was for RCW 42.30.110 subsection 1I to discuss with legal counsel representing the agency matters relating to agency enforcement actions, Community Action Council. County Manager, I'll hand this to you.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. My recommendation to the board will be for you to take an action to hand this matter of the Community Action Council to the Thurston County Auditor, Mary Hall.
Okay, and does that require a motion or just a vote?
Yeah, just, please state your intent of that approach.
Whether we agree or not,
Yeah.
I agree with that.
I'm in agreement.
I agree.
Thank you. And also, we will be working on a parallel track to see if we can find a vendor, expeditiously as much as we can, to continue to provide the services to those individuals who are in need of rental and utility assistance. So that also might be common for your consideration. So that's all I have related to the first executive session.
Thank you. Okay. And then will we need to send a letter or will it just come from the auditors?
If the auditors will take the lead at this point.
Perfect. Thank you. And sorry for cutting you off, Commissioner Menzer. Okay. Second, we were in second executive session for RCW 42.30.110 subsection 1I to discuss with legal counsel representing the agency to litigation or potential litigation, REIT 1 funding for 3000 Pacific, and no commissioner action follows that executive session. With that, we'll move on to our next standing item, which is the COVID-19 update. And
So
I see Dr. Abdul-Malik and
Madam Chair,
yes, sir.
if I may ask staff to be as expeditiously as they can when they address the board, because we have a very long agenda this morning.
Thank you.
Good morning, Commissioners. Kurt Harden, Interim Director of Public Health and Social Services. COVID update for today. Thurston County total cases are 45,644. And also, unfortunately, Thurston County deaths are 377. Our 14-day 100,000 case rate is 640.5 as of February 27th. Some perspective, last week it was 1,280.1. The week before that is 1,635, so it's trending in a good direction. Current COVID patients in the hospitalization is 24. Last week that was 38, and 2 weeks ago that was 54. So again, a good trend for that one. ICU bed availability, 12 adult, 0 pediatric, and acute bed availability, 17 adult, 0 pediatric. Congregate care outbreaks, we currently have 32 congregate care outbreaks under investigation, but a total for since COVID of 185. Vaccinations, vaccine doses given in Thurston County as of February 26, 502,962. Percent of people initiating vaccination in the county, 71.5%. Percent of people fully vaccinated, 64.6. People over the age of 16 initiating vaccination, 81.2%. People fully vaccinated over the age of 16, 73.5%. The population initiating vaccine over the age of 5, 75.6, and then percent of population fully vaccinated over the age of 5, 68.4. Also, the number of people who received an additional dose in Thurston County of the vaccine is 98,615. I want to really quick emphasize vaccination clinics. The Capitol Mall Vaccination Clinic is open 5 days a week. It is closed on Tuesdays and Wednesdays, but open the remaining days. Appointments are encouraged. We are testing throughout the county, today at Rochester, tomorrow in Lacey, Thursday in Olympia, Friday at Evergreen State College. And then I will turn this over to Dr. Abdul-Malik for her portion of the update.
Good morning, Commissioners. We are continuing to see our case rates downtrend. And our other indicators are similarly downtrending as well. The governor released yesterday his plan for revising the indoor mask mandate in public spaces as of 11:59 p.m. on March 11th. So would go into effect essentially March 12th. At midnight. We are still receiving guidance. So there's schools guidance updates that we're anticipating early next week. And we're also anticipating labor and industries guidance as well in terms of specific employment settings. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions you may have. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions, Commissioner Edwards?
No, and when well, yes, I do have a question, I guess. Will we also end the mandate business about requiring employees to get vaccinations or continue to receive testing? Because I think that's a punitive measure that we've got in place, that general citizens are getting free testing out there, and our employees are still being required to pay for their weekly test. And I'm wondering, is that going to end on March 11th as well?
If I may, I have on your agenda later today to discuss this matter. On your agenda, if you see on item number 13,
Okay.
on the commissioner items, they have the indoor masking, boardroom, in-person openings, as well as vaccination testing requirements.
Okay.
And I have a couple of suggestions related to that. So.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Menser?
No questions.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Abdulmalik and Kurt. Okay, next item is homeless strategies.
Good morning, Keely Marino with Public Health and Social Services. I'm here with be as quick as I possibly can with my update. So the point and time count homeless census for 2022 is underway. It began on Thursday night at Union Gospel Mission. There was street outreach done in the City of Olympia on Friday, as well as 3 encampments. There's an ongoing 7-day camp with several entities, Roof down in Rochester, Family Support Center, Together, and then the shelter providers will be doing surveys ongoing for the 7-day count. And then Wednesday we'll conclude our camp count. All of it will be surveyed, and we should have some preliminary numbers within the next couple of weeks. We did conclude the hotels, which I mentioned last week, but I do have some numbers which I can save for next week, just in terms of brevity and to keep this as quick as possible. We did release our request for proposals on Friday of last week. Those funds will be for CDBG projects, as well as for hazardous and cold weather response. We also had a surprise around extra funds for CSG dollars, which will also be RFP'd out in that process. The bidders conference is tomorrow at Thursday, 1 p.m. and all applications will be due on the 1st of April. We had a declared hazardous weather event last week for extremely cold weather at night. We were able to stand up a extra overnight shelter from 8 p.m. to 8 a.m. at First Christian Church, staffed by Interfaith Works, and that provided an extra 47 beds during that 4-night hazardous weather event. And the shelter-in-place activities performed by Partners in Prevention Education continued throughout the week, providing survival gear out into the encampments, and that was also buffered by bunch of tents and cold weather supplies going out to those who left the hotels, as well as point in time count survival gear. And that is what I've got for you today.
Thank you. Questions, Commissioner Edwards?
No questions, thank you.
Commissioner Menser?
No, thank you.
No questions for me. Thank you, Keely. Okay, our next item is review BoCC draft agenda for our meeting March 1st, 2022. And we'll call the meeting to order at 2 p.m. The Pledge of Allegiance to be led by Commissioner Edwards. Approval of the Tuesday, March 1st, 2022 agenda. Approval of the board meeting minutes from February 22nd, 2022. then there will be an opportunity for the public to address the board and county manager's update. Is there anything, county manager?
I don't have any particular updates, but we received this morning an email from a citizen. Will he be providing public testimony this afternoon? Is in your email box inbox.
Question, comments on that?
No, ma'am.
Okay, and then we'll go on to consent
I
items.
think Commissioner Mesa had any questions?
Oh, sorry, I did not see your hand. Go ahead.
I just didn't hear, what was the email about?
Yeah, a citizen submitted some documentation on the public testimony that he will be providing this afternoon. And he submitted that this morning via email.
Okay.
Okay, moving on to consent items A through D. Item A, Public Works, appointment to the Solid Waste Advisory Committee.
Yeah, Madam Chair, you have reviewed those items in the past. For your consideration is to appoint Mr. Jim Cooper as a representative from the city of Olympia to the Thurston County Solid Waste Advisory Committee for a 3-year term, March 2022 to March 2025.
Jeff, I see you're up. Anything you'd like to add to that?
The only thing I'll add is that Mr. Cooper was our most recent chair, and he is now our current vice chair of the committee. Other than that, that's all I'll add.
Thank you. Okay, questions, comments, Commissioner Edwards?
No, I mean, Mr. Cooper is a county or a city council person from Olympia, and it's their choice, right?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Sorry, I shouldn't have answered that. Jeff, go ahead.
Yeah, that is correct.
And the reason I answered it, I serve on the SWAT committee. So Commissioner Mentor?
No, good to go.
Okay. Next item, item B, Emergency Services, reappointment to the Emergency Medical Services Council.
Your items 3B and 3C are those in relation to the board's decision that you made a couple of weeks ago. The first one, 3B, is for you to consider reappointing Ms. Cindy Humbley to the Emergency Medical Services Council as a citizen at large for the term of March 1st, 2022 to February 29, 2024. In item 3C, the same is for you to consider reappointing Mr. Margaret McPhee to the Emergency Medical Services Council as a citizen at large for the term of, again, March 1st, 2022 to February 29, 2024. And this, again, following up the directions of the board you provided a couple of weeks ago.
Questions, comments, Commissioner Edwards?
No questions, ma'am.
Commissioner Mentor? Okay. Item D is from the auditors, approval of the voucher list. And any questions on that? Okay, moving on to department items. We'll start out with Central Services request for proposals for Atrium furniture, fixtures, and equipment.
Yeah, Madam Chair, this is a follow-up to the Board of County Commissioners approved the lease at the 3000 Pacific. This is step is for you to authorize Central Services to issue a request for proposals for furniture, fixtures, and equipment to support this particular building.
Questions, Commissioner Edwards?
No, ma'am.
Questions, Commissioner Mentor? Okay, we'll move on to item 4B. Thank you. Contract award for project development study.
Yep, and this is also related somewhat to item 4A, and this is for you to consider awarding the contract to the DLR group for $250,000 to start working on the courthouse campus itself. Because the strategy, as some offices and departments move to the 3000 Pacific, the remainder offices and departments here in the courthouse campus need to go through the process of assessing the space needs, as well as determine what tenant improvements and remodels they need to be done on this facility. So we went through a request for proposal, request for qualifications, and DLR group is the one who has been selected. They have a lot of experience related to courthouse and courtrooms type of space analysis. and for your considerations to award the contract. So we'll continue with the process here at the courthouse campus. Robin?
No, I think you covered it. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Questions, comments, Commissioner Edwards?
Is DLR Group a local organization?
Is from Seattle, I believe.
Is it? Okay. Thank you.
Commissioner Menser? To add to Commissioner Edwards' point, isn't the city usually in? I thought it was usually in the motion.
No,
No.
not usually.
Oh, okay.
But if you'd like to add where they're from, we can add it.
No, if it's, I don't mind if it's not usually done. I was just wondering.
I just, Chair, could I comment on that?
Yes, sir, go ahead.
It does seem that oftentimes our motions do name the organization and where they're, like Vancouver or Olympia, or so. It seems like they usually say that. So I'm with the
We can add
chair
that.
on that.
We can add. And
You can add it. They're just not
isn't that-
normally there.
Okay.
We'll add this after the DLR group from Seattle, Washington, and on this afternoon's motion.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Robin. And Chris? Okay, moving on to Commissioner items. 5A, set a public hearing for ordinance to expand the Board of Health members per RCW 7005.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This, for your consideration, is this related to House Bill 1152, and that is the amendment Commissioner Edwards suggested last week when you reviewed this item, just to make sure it is required by the engrossed second substitute House Bill 1152. That's in the motion. And this is really we prepare for you a resolution to expand the Board of Health in response to this mandate of the state law. And I have provided to you a copy of that resolution, ordinance, I'm sorry. And the next step in the process for you to consider setting a public hearing, in this case will be for March 22nd, 2022, it's in the afternoon, for you to receive public testimony before you consider us adopting this ordinance.
Okay. Questions, Commissioner Edwards?
No, ma'am.
Questions, Commissioner Menser?
Is a copy of the ordinance somewhere floating around in my email maybe, or?
Yes, I sent a copy of the ordinance to the board members 2 weeks ago, but I can certainly circulate a new copy after this meeting. I'll be more than happy to do that.
Yeah, I think I need that. I don't remember seeing the actual ordinance, but
Okay,
I'm fine to set a public hearing, so go ahead.
okay, I'll make sure that all of you have a copy.
Okay, thank you. Next item is item 5B, set a public hearing for an ordinance to amend chapter 2.02.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioners. This is a long-standing item. The board reviewed this particular ordinance as to how you can enhance the chapter 202, where it outlines when and how the Board of County Commissioners meet. There's an existing ordinance, and they outlines the requirements. And I believe back in at the beginning of 2021, it was a desire just to get a little more contextual in terms of this particular ordinance. So you did held a public hearing just before, I think early 2021, which you received a couple of public testimonies. Fast forward, I provided a couple of revisions related to that ordinance, and that is what is before you. And this particular request is for you to set another public hearing, considering that the last public hearing that you held on this particular item is old and I think is appropriate. I believe the board members discussed this. To have another public hearing for the board to receive public testimony related to this particular ordinance. Any questions?
Question, Commissioner Edwards?
No, ma'am.
Commissioner Menser?
No question. I just make a comment. I mean, the only comment, I do remember public comment on this at the original public hearing. And the only citizen that made comment has continued to comment on this through emails and public comment all along the way. So I'm not sure what the point is of another public hearing. I mean, I guess we'll find out. I don't necessarily object to it, but since we did have a public hearing and there was very little comment other than the person who continues to comment on it, and we continue to read those and consider those. But I guess we could just throw it up there if you think it's the right thing to do.
Actually, that was the conversation the board had was, my suggestion at that point is you already had a public hearing, you made the intent, but I think it was a desire to have another one. But
Yeah, okay, I do remember that. There's no harm in it, so that's fine.
Okay, and I don't have any additional comments or questions on this. Okay, moving on to Public Health and Social Services, item 6A, amendment to extend the Thurston County Chamber Foundation Thurston Thrives Backbone Support Contract for 1 year, 2022.
yeah, Madam Chair, you reviewed this item. It was Commissioner Edwards and yourself. This item, as a result, I have scheduled a briefing, a short briefing with the Chamber's Foundation this coming Thursday during your commissioners check-in. So I think at that point, there will be a lot of conversation and maybe answering some of the questions you had last week. So my recommendation at this point is to move this item to next week.
Yes, okay. Commissioner Edwards,
Sounds good.
Commissioner Menser? Okay, and I'm in agreement with that as well. Okay, so item 6A is stricken. And item 6B, which is now item 6A, is contract with Confluence Consulting Northwest for the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Consultant.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. You have reviewed this item on a couple of occasions and you have rescheduled this item. Finally, I have a full board, so for you to consider taking an action on this to award a contract to Confluence Consultant for $150,000 to address really the community-based BIPOC committee as to how we exercise those allocations in terms of the funding. As a matter of perspective, back in 2021, the Regional Housing Council set aside a one-time award to secure the services of this consultant. And really is really to address whether the proposals that we receive are identify the diversity that we need to have here in the county. Keely has provided additional perspective. I know you had discussions about this item. I know that I'm short on this. I'm trying to move right away on the items, but I'll be more than happy to answer any additional questions. But the board has discussed this item on a couple of occasions.
Keely, anything you'd like to add?
No, I think I'm good.
Questions, comments, Commissioner Edwards?
I do continue to wonder about the end product that we're gonna end up with. And I can't imagine that the staff that we employ here at Thurston County or some of the surrounding jurisdictions are not capable of doing it right when it comes to this equity and inclusion issue. So that's why I'm wondering if it's a necessary expenditure of tax dollars. So that's kind of where I'm at.
Commissioner Menser?
No questions. Well, one question, I guess. Keely, this is a regional housing council recommendation, and can you tell us the funding source again? I know you have in the past, but remind us.
No problem. The funding source is 2163, the local document recording fee dollars.
Thank you.
Which all the jurisdictions contribute to that effort, by the way. It's not just the county.
Chair, could I have a follow-up on that?
Yeah, go ahead.
On $2163, those dollars can be spent in what kind of general area? For what benefit for the community?
Those dollars are earmarked for homeless response and affordable housing efforts.
And therein lies my problem, is something concrete versus something we end up with in writing, I would hope. And I think we're already there as far as our staff being very dedicated, caring staff. I believe are very aware and very conscious of these type of issues. So that's where I'm at. Thank you.
So,
Robin had her hand up there.
yeah, but I'll do my comments. Robin, I saw your hand up. Just, it's like I said previously, there was a lot of discussion. I'm part of both the RHC funding work group and the Regional Housing Council, and there was a lot of discussion about this and why. And well, I do agree with you, Commissioner Edwards, that our staff are very in tuned and very proactive. This is not just only for the county. This is for all the other jurisdictions as well as the organizations that we partner with to provide services. So this is a much larger picture, and we can't overburden our staff even more to handle these services. So, I just, at this time, I'm fully in support of it. I understand where you're coming from on this, but it really is something that's needed. And Robin, I'll hand it off to you.
It was just to say that while the items that Keely described are concrete, the money can also be used for administrative purposes, and this falls within that bucket.
Thank you. Okay, if there are no additional comments or questions on that item, we will move on to Public Works, which is item 7A, resolution granting a non-exclusive franchise to the Eld Inlet Community Water Association for a water system within Thurston County rights of way. It looks like it's also connected to item C. So, County Manager.
Yeah, Madam Chair, I'm going to be addressing items 7A, 7B combined as a matter of just to be respectful of the time. This is a follow-up to the public hearing the board conducted last Tuesday on two application requests for a non-inclusive franchise. One was related to Eld Inlet, and the second is the Scott Lake Maintenance Company. So you held a public hearing, you did not receive any public testimony. After the public hearing, you approved the application. So this next steps, item 7A, 7B, is for you to approve and granting the non-exclusive franchise to both outlets.
Okay. Questions, comments, Commissioner Edwards?
No questions, thank you.
Commissioner Menser?
No.
Okay, and I don't either. Thank you, Craig. Okay, and so going on to item 7C, set a public hearing to consider the 2022 update of the drainage design and erosion control manual.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner. On February 3rd, 2022, you had a briefing related to the necessary updates to the Thurston County Drainage and Erosion Control Manual. And this is a requirement by the Department of Ecology that we need to go through this process. The staff walk you through some of the changes and also staff walk you through some of the public outreach they have exercised in the last few months. So this particular item, before you consider approving the changes, is for you to set a public hearing for Tuesday, April 5th, 2022 at 3 in the afternoon.
Questions, Commissioner Edwards?
No questions, thank you.
Questions, Commissioner Menser?
No.
Okay, so with that, we'll move on to item 7D, set a public hearing to consider repeal of resolution 12083 and proposed resolution regarding speed limits on county road.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Similar to the item you just reviewed, you had a briefing from Public Works on January 19, 2022, where they outlined the need to enhance the current ordinance that we have in place, resolution that we have in place, how we assess the changes on the speed limits here in the Thurston County. The fundamental changes, you may recall, was to introduce professional judgment within that decision-making process. So that was a part of the briefing. So the next step in the process is for you to consider setting a public hearing for April 5th, 2022 at 3 in the afternoon, for you to take public testimony before you consider taking an action on changing this resolution.
Questions, comments, Commissioner Edwards?
Just for clarification, professional judgment is?
All the engineers who, I think that will be Matt and his team, they will allow us that perspective.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Munzer? Oh, thank you.
No, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, with that, we have reached the end of the agenda. We'll after go over the standing items, which commissioners will report on board work sessions and assigned committee meetings. And then the county manager will review the board of county commissioners schedule for the week of March 1st, 2022. And with that, we will adjourn. Okay, commissioners, do you want to take a 10-minute break?
At least 5 for me.
5-minute break? Okay, 5-minute break then. So we will be back at 10:50.
Thank you.
ahead, Commissioner.
Go ahead, man.
Okay, and we are back. It is 10:52 from break. We left off on the review of the Board of County Commissioners draft agenda for the meeting of March 1st, 2022. We will pick up with the review of the Board of County Commissioners draft agenda for our meeting on March 8th, 2022. And with that, we'll call the meeting to order at 2 p.m. The Pledge of Allegiance to be led by Vice Chair Menser. Approval of the Tuesday, March 8th, 2022 agenda. Approval of the board meeting minutes for March 1st, 2022. And the opportunity for the public to address the board, and then the county manager's update. County manager, anything you'd like to add?
If there's any follow-up as a result of the public testimony you have today, I will do so.
Okay. With that, we'll move on to consent items. The only item right now is auditor financial services, and it's approval of the voucher list. Any questions or comments on that?
Not yet.
Okay. Moving on to department items. We'll start off with the Commissioner's Office. Item 4A, Nisqually Tribe Interlocal Agreement for Broadband Expansion.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is a follow-up to the early Board of County Commissioners decision to release $500,000 from the American Rescue Plan to start partnering with the Nisqually Tribe as to how we're going to get to the point of providing broadband services to mainly South County residents. So this item for you is to consider that in local agreement, we need to have this instrument in place before we can start spending the dollars. And also in accordance to the requirements by the Department of Treasury, includes a sub-recipient agreement as an attachment as well. And this is similar to the in-local agreement the board approved with the City of Olympia related to purchasing the Franz Anderson Road, because we use the same funding source as the American Rescue Plan. Again, this particular in-local agreement is to formally partner with the Nisqually Tribe to start working on broadband projects on South County.
Questions, Commissioner Edwards?
Yes. Is this an exclusive arrangement with one jurisdiction, I guess, one entity, and no one else is allowed in on the game from this perspective? That's my first question.
So this in-local agreements with Nisqually Tribe, this is just to build the infrastructure, not to provide services.
Right, but my concern is that if we have 10 entities trying to provide services versus one, we're gonna get the services to the masses much quicker. And that is where my concern lies. If there's no way for other entities to piggyback in on this influx of cash, I guess, to them. So that's my concern, that it's a kind of an exclusive agreement. But maybe it's not an exclusive agreement, and maybe others could apply to get in on the action as well to enhance broadband for our citizens. So that's kind of where I'm at on this issue. I see Robin's got her hand up there.
Go ahead, Robin.
The proposal to build an open architecture so that multiple providers could potentially be authorized to provide services on the infrastructure that we are setting in place?
Okay, and on a follow-up to that, when you say provide services, that's different than providing the infrastructure to provide the services, right?
That's correct.
And my concern is that with only one vendor supplying that infrastructure, we're not gonna get the broad coverage that we need. I mean, it's kind of like if you send one person out to hoe 1 acre of garden, it takes so long, but if you put 10 people out there, it goes 10 times faster. And therein is my concern on how
So we need
that can
We
happen.
need one entity to build the infrastructure that many entities can provide services over. And we've been talking to the tribe about open architecture so that it is available to many service providers.
Yeah, and the county will not get into the business of the service providing services. I think the county, and this is very narrow and building the infrastructure. And this is really the result of many conversations that you have with the Nisqually tribe and also among yourselves as to how we need to, because we're not looking this as a request for proposal, a bidding process. This is different because the Nisqually tribe has already built infrastructure, and this is just an expansion of that to provide services on South County. Where we'll most likely be using the county's right of way to provide that. And the service is a different conversation as Robin stated.
Madam Chair,
Go ahead, sir.
yes, I do realize that, but my concern is that this is an exclusive arrangement with one entity and excludes the ability of other entities that have a like capability or would like to participate. And I don't know, I know we've got a great relationship with the Nisqually tribe, and I think they're headed in the right direction. I'm just afraid this ends up being an exclusive arrangement, and we've not got an exemption that we would normally get from maybe our internal auditor. I don't know how that works, exactly, but I know once in a while, we'll move forward and get a comment from maybe the auditor's office that it's legal to move forward because nobody else provides the service or whatever. And I am very concerned that this is an exclusive agreement that negates others the ability to participate. That's where I'm at on this.
Well, if I may, this a little bit different on what you stated and related to a procurement process. And that's what you're making a reference, Commissioner, was a procurement process when perhaps the board and you have the internal auditor commenting on the procurement process elements. This is a local agreement with a governmental agency, similar to interlocal agreements that we have with the City of Olympia, City of Lacey, and any other organizations. So with all due respect, the procurement process and the deviations from such do not apply in this case.
As a follow-up, Chair.
Commissioner Edwards, can I pass it around to the other commissioners?
Sure,
for questions,
sure,
and I'll
sure.
come back to you.
Yep.
Commissioner Menser, questions?
Ramiro, can you just we talked about this, we signed the letter. What are there elements of this ILA that do something like are advancing the process, or is this kind of just the legal memorialization of the letter of intent? I mean, is the ball moving down the field, and if so, in what way? What's in this that's new?
There is really just the instrument formalizing the process, formalizing the letter of intent. The board, all three commissioners sign within the Nisqually tribe. So this is just the next step to formalize the instrument as to how we're going to be releasing the money and start utilizing the $500,000. The board, if I may recall, unanimously approved to work with the Nisqually tribe.
And what are the triggers for release of the $500,000? What would happen that would have us? I mean, what kind of project or what exactly is the thing that we put that money toward?
So one of the key elements that we need to do is we need to conduct a county-wide survey. And the countywide survey, it has to be very narrowed down to the citizen level as to who has access and who doesn't. And then we'll start determining the magnitude of the projects. And also this interlocal agreement will allow us to access grants at the state level related to broadband. And that's really one of the key elements of this particular $500,000 just to start building what this project is going to be. And that's how the premise in which the board released the initial 500,000 out of the set aside from the ARPA funds to begin and start putting our heads around as to what the magnitude of this project will be. Did I answer your question, sir?
And so how does our money fit with whatever money is being provided by Nisqually Tribe? I mean, we're doing this preliminary groundwork and we're sharing the cost 50-50, or, I mean, what is it that, how does it get deployed and vis-a-vis what Nisqually Tribe is doing on their own?
Robin, you have that answer readily available, or?
I believe that our money is going in as only one piece, and the tribe has other grant opportunities that they are accessing. But for example, the tribe has won one of the state broadband office awards to move this process forward. So they're going to be, over the course of the project, I anticipate multiple funding streams. So
Where did we get 500,000? Why was that number chosen by the board? Was that to help them with a particular, to qualify for a particular grant, or that's just how much we were willing to spend at this point, or?
No, it was really the former commissioner. It was just to begin the process within the Nisqually Tribe, because this will serve as a seed money, as Robin has stated. And as you may recall, when they presented this plan to the board, the Nisqually Tribe, they have a lot of money set aside for this project. So this is just one element of the larger project. So I don't remember really what the actual numbers, and I think that's what you're looking for. What is their participation? But the Nisqually Tribe has been very effective in securing already broadband dollars for this project. So I can probably have Jenica bring. She's unavailable to join us this morning. She's not feeling well, but I can certainly have her come next week with additional answers to the questions that you may have.
Commissioner Edwards, I'll hand it back to you for questions.
Okay, just to follow up what Commissioner Menzer said, the $500,000 that we decided that was an earmark that we were shooting for. I don't recall either exactly how the dollar amount came about. And yes, I did sign on, this was a unanimous move by the board to work in coordination with the tribe. But even way back then, I brought this issue up of the exclusiveness that goes along with this. And I want the tribe to be very successful on moving this project forward. I think they've got good intentions, and it has to do with reach all the way down to the Chehalis tribe, I believe, and then other areas off of that main line, if you will. My concern is that this $500,000 is taxpayers' money. We don't really have a good understanding of how it's broke out and how it's to be expended. I don't believe that the Nisqually Tribe has to go out to bid for anything. They're a sovereign nation. They can do their own thing. So I think there's just too much unknown. I would like to have something in here that allows for other entities to participate. And I'm going to go back to my statement about hoeing the garden. one person's gonna take forever to hoe the garden, but 10 people are gonna get it done in an hour. And if our goal is to provide this service to as many underserved areas that we possibly can, one contractor can't do that all by themselves. It has to be farmed out to many, and there were other entities that contacted us that wanted to play in this game, but we kind of held to, well, we're going with the tribe. I've never understood that, because I don't think we should ever be exclusive when we're talking about taxpayer money being expended. I think we should always be out for bid, out in the public, how it's gonna go. So shy of any other motion, I would certainly rather this be removed until the board is completely comfortable on all aspects of this transaction. So, Madam
Robin?
Chair, that's where I'm at.
Yes, thank you, Commissioner. So I'd like to respond to some of Commissioner Edwards' concerns. First, this contract was reviewed by the internal auditor as an interlocal agreement. It has also been reviewed and approved by our attorneys. Second, because we are working with federal ARPA funds in the state and local coronavirus response recovery fund, the tribe becomes a subrecipient to the county. And as such, a subrecipient must follow all federal rules that the county is subject to, including procurement process. So one of the things we looked into is the process that the tribe followed to procure the contractor that is going to lay the infrastructure. And that was done through an RFP process. We already checked into that and ensured that that happened. This agreement is not for the tribe to lay in the infrastructure. This is an interlocal agreement under state law that allows us to use funds for both entities to use funds to achieve a goal. And we are doing the appropriate subrecipient steps and monitoring, which is why this is a subrecipient contract in an interlocal agreement, and it's been reviewed.
Madam Chair?
Go ahead, sir. But I do want to be conscious of the time.
Yes.
Because we have so many other items.
I just don't recall an RFP that, I don't know, that we put out or the tribe might have responded.
The county would not have, the tribe did.
Oh, okay. I still feel that there are other entities that contacted the county that were not able to participate for one reason or another. One of them, I believe, was Comcast. One of them was the Tenino Telephone Company. And I think there was another one, but I've still never understood why it's an exclusive. And going back to 10 people hoeing the garden goes a lot faster than one. And I don't know where this 500 is going, what the breakdown is, how it gets allocated out. Does it go in one check? Is there certain criteria that must be met? I don't know any of those things. So I think we ought to remove this until we know some of those questions that have been brought up.
So I want to add to that because, I mean, the difference is that Tenino Telephone Company and Comcast are private entities, and Nisqually is a governmental agency. And, you know, Comcast and Tenino Telephone Company have, you know, when Nisqually did their RFP, had a chance to go out and respond to that if they wanted to access these funds. And I'm not sure if they did or they did not. But again, this is just us partnering with the Nisqually tribe to do something bigger. And with that, I do want to be, again, conscious of the time. I know Jenica Machado will be here next week and she can help answer some further questions. With that, I'm not sure where the commissioners are. I heard Commissioner Edwards would like to remove this item. And Commissioner Menser, how do you feel?
I think I'll just review the agreement, which I haven't seen it yet, and I'll make sure that I'll have any more specific questions next Tuesday. So I guess I would ask to hold it there. And if I have more concerns after I've reviewed the specifics, then I'll bring them next Tuesday or follow up with the county manager between now and then. But right now I'm okay keeping it there. I'm not sure, if I remember right, 500,000 is, I think it was 5 million that we had earmarked for broadband. I know we tweaked those dials a little bit, but it's not, I don't know that, I'm wondering whether or not this ILA does what Commissioner Edwards fears it's going to do. And for that, I'm not going to take any more time this morning. I'll review it on my own.
Okay. So for now it stays, and then we'll be hearing more from it next week. And then at that time, if the commissioners are still not comfortable with it moving forward, then we can have a discussion at that time. Okay, item 5, information technology, district court Chandler Court video.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This particular item for your consideration is to purchase additional equipment to facilitate the Chandler Court. In Chandler Court is we have satellite court rooms. In this particular case is specifically related to district court, to have audio video court solutions, also known as JABs. And this particular funding source, the district court has submitted an application to use some of the CARES money through the Administrative Office of the Courts, AOC. The result of that application, they received $55,018. And that is really the funding source as to how we need to process on this particular request. But really the intent is to enhance the audio video facilities at the Chandler Court so they can facilitate court hearings in district court. Dennis.
Good morning, Commissioners. Dennis Osorio, IT Director. I just wanted to touch on, we did put the systems over there do have audio. What we're doing is essentially upgrading those to have video function as well. And I think Frankie's here if there's any specifics on business operations on the impact, but.
Questions, Commissioner Edwards?
Yes, the fund that this 52,000 is coming out of.
This is a grant.
Is that correct?
It is a grant from the Office of the Administrator of the Courts, and the source of their funding is the recovery fund, the ARPA recovery fund, ultimately.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Menser?
No, I'm good, thank you.
Okay, I am good on this item. Okay, moving on to Public Health and Social Services, item 6A, interlocal agreement with Thurston Mason Behavioral Health Administrative Services Organization for Criminal Justice Treatment Account Fund.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This particular item is for you to, as you stated, amend the interlocal agreement that we have with the Thurston Mason Behavioral Health Administrative Services Organization. They currently have been allocated $75,000 from the Criminal Justice Treatment Account, also known as CJTA. And this particular funding is allocated by the State of Washington Healthcare Authority. This funding must be spent on substance and disorder treatment and recovery support services, those individuals involved with the criminal justice system. As the behavioral health, Thurston Mason Behavioral Health Administrative Services Organization has been provided already those services, and there's amendments to increase that contract for an additional $30,000 for a total of $105,000. Carrie?
Carrie Hannon, Public Health and Social Services. That was a great summary. Thanks.
Thank you. Questions, Commissioner Edwards?
No questions, thank you.
Commissioner Menser?
No.
Okay, thank you. And then item B, interlocal agreement with Thurston Mason Behavioral Health Administrative Services Organization for treatment sales tax funds.
This item for your consideration is just follow up to the board's decision that the board made in approving the 2022-2023 county budget. Within the county budget, you said you already approved allocations of the treatment sales tax in which $5,952,357 was allocated to Thurston Mason Behavioral Health Organization Services. And at some point, I need to get this right. It's a long title. And again, it's just to set the instrument. In this case, is the in-local agreement. And this performance period will be from January 1st, 2022 to December 31st, 2023. Carrie?
That's all correct. You had considerable discussion of the programs that are contained within this agreement in the budget process. So really, this is just, as the county manager said, the vehicle to formalize that agreement with the ASO.
Okay, thank you. Questions, Commissioner Edwards?
Yes, on this dollar amount, does that leave us enough dollars to do the other activities that we're doing with this treatment sales tax fund?
Yes, so this was part of your bigger plan for that fund with all of the services. Many services are provided through this partnership with the Administrative Services Organization, but it also, everything that you adopted in your budget appropriates funding to a lot of county offices and departments. That is, and as Ramiro mentioned, it is a 2-year agreement, so it's about $3 million a year. And we have a budget of $9 to $10 million a year in TST spending now.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Menzer?
No, thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Edwards had asked my question. Thank you, Carrie. Okay, moving on to Public Works. Item 7A, resolution and call for sealed bids for the US 12 Urban Improvements Phase 1, Old Highway 99 Southwest to West UGA boundary. And County Manager?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. We'll revise the motion and the action a little bit to be more prescriptive. This is related to the constructing a roundabout at the intersection of Sargent Road and Highway 12. This has been a long conversation leading to this point where it required a lot of coordination with the Chehalis Tribe as well as private developers as to how they're going to be contributing to the construction of this new roundabout. And again, it's at the intersection of Highway 12 and Sargent Road, right in the Grand Mountain area. So for your consideration, next week will be to authorize the Public Works Department to issue the sealed bids to secure the services of a contractor to start working on this roundabout. So I'll work with the staff just to make sure the action is a little more clear, and because it's really related to a roundabout construction on Highway 12 and Sargent Road. Teresa?
Yes, that's correct. You said it all right. The reason we use the confusing title is because that's what the Transportation Improvement Program calls it for a lot of reasons, but we can clarify that.
Questions? Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Teresa. Okay, questions, Commissioner Edwards.
Yes, farther out toward going towards Oakville, we saved the Department of Transportation a lot of money when we consolidated, and they did not need to do 2 roundabouts. And then there was talk they were going to help us on this roundabout program. Did we finally get participation from the Washington State Department of Transportation on this project? Financial participation?
No, and I don't know if the county manager wants to weigh in on this, but I know that there'd been conversations and also some communications between the Director of Public Works and the Department of Transportation, and ultimately they said no monetary contribution was available. However, they did agree to not charge us for any review or permit cost. And that was their contribution.
So they're in for about 1%? It's not much. I'm not happy with that outcome, to be honest with you. Now, I don't know as I'm willing to hold this thing up because of it, but I don't think they lived up to their commitment to Thurston County when we helped them out farther down Highway 12. So I don't know if I'm gonna run around squawking about it or not, but I don't think it was the right thing for them to do if they chose to back out. Anyway, I'm not gonna, I guess we still need to go ahead with it, so. I'm done. I'm done
Okay.
squawking, thank you.
Questions, Commissioner Menzer?
Not on this one, no.
Okay. Yeah, definitely expected. I agree with Commissioner Edwards. More participation from the state, but it is what it is. Thank you. Okay, next item, resolution to alter the configuration of 197th Avenue Southwest.
So that's related to the previous item that you discussed, Madam Chair. Right now, this configuration of 197 makes somewhat of a 90-degree turn that meets the Sargent Road to the north of this intersection. So as a result of this construction of this new runabout, this configuration of 197 needs to be redone, and as a result, this is surprising to me that actually the board needs to actually take a resolution, a legislative action to change the configuration of a road. So that's just news to me, but Teresa can elaborate on that.
Sure. I consulted with the prosecuting attorney's office on what the appropriate process would be, because we are technically closing 197th, but because we are also adding a roundabout, we're changing the traffic patterns and the connectivity of the streets down there. And she felt that this was probably the best way to make sure that the board authorized this new configuration. And so it resulted in this resolution.
Thank you. Questions, Commissioner Menzer?
So aside from the legality of it, is this reconfiguration something that is well known to the, I mean, it's been part of the plan the whole time. There's no surprise here. There's nothing new about this. This is just execution of the long-standing implementation of the roundabout.
Right. It's just the cleanup paperwork, but it's always been proposed to be this way.
Okay, thank you. That was my question.
Thank you. Okay, moving on to the next.
No questions. I got some, but I'm not gonna ask them.
Did I skip you, Commissioner?
No, that's fine. I'm fine with this. I'm good.
I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on, contract award for Culvert Supply for Fish Passage Enhancement 2022. So it's project 63009 and 63017.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. As you may recall, you authorized the Department of Public Works to issue bids to secure the services of two concrete box culverts related to the Fish Passage Enhancement Program. And the bids were received on February 10, 2022, and it was only two bidders. And the successor bidder at this point is the, what do you have? What is the name? Oh, it's the Columbia Precast Products of Woodland, Washington. And this will be for the total cost of $236,412, which includes 10% contingency. As you may recall, this has been a proven approach that has been successful in terms of building these pieces of infrastructure with the constraints we have on the fish window. And by ordering the bridges or the box culverts in this case ahead of time, that will allow us to implement the construction rather quickly when the time comes. Marcus, are you here to answer any questions?
Yes, Marcus Dorvik, Senior Civil Engineer. I'm stepping in for Catherine this morning and happy to answer any questions.
Questions, Commissioner Edwards?
No questions.
Commissioner Menzer?
No.
And I don't either. Thank you. Okay, then we'll go over our standing items. Commissioners will report on board work sessions and assigned committee meetings. And then item B, the county manager will review the Board of County Commissioners schedule for the week of March 8th, 2022. We will adjourn, and then at 3 or shortly thereafter, we will pick up with a public hearing, which is operations of the Black Lake Special District.
Yeah, and I'm expecting to be a long public hearing on that, Madam Chair. And that's the reason why the next item on your agenda, the Board of Health, which was scheduled for next week, has been rescheduled, I believe, for March 22nd.
Okay. Questions on that, Commissioner Edwards?
No questions, thank you.
Commissioner Menzer?
No.
Okay, so then we'll go on to our next item, which is the review of the Board of Health draft agenda, and that meeting of March 8th, 2022, like the county manager says, has been canceled or rescheduled for a later date. Okay, with that, we'll move on to proclamations and awards.
Good morning, Amy Davis, clerk of the board. There are no proclamations for review.
Okay, and then our next item is, any comments on that? No?
No comments.
Okay, we'll move on to our advisory boards and commissions.
Applications included in your packet are from Glenn Shorno, Chris Dolman, and Celeste Winther, all for the Agriculture Advisory Committee. Prior to receiving Celeste Winther's application, we had asked the committee to provide us with their recommendation of the two applicants at that time, Mr. Shorno and Mr. Dolman. The chair of the committee provided us with their recommendation of Mr. Shorno. So there are now 2 farmer vacancies and 2 non-farmer vacancies. And with that, is there discussion or any questions?
Questions, Commissioner Edwards?
How about if we take this up in the sake of time next week?
Commissioner Menzer?
That's fine. Yeah, I'm not
Okay, yes.
ready to make any appointments right now anyway, so that sounds fine.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not either. Okay, so with that, we'll move on with more to come next week to the PIO check-in.
Good morning, Commissioners. Megan Porter, Public Information Supervisor. I have no urgent updates for you. I'll save it for next week.
Thank you. Okay, moving on to legislative update.
I provided you with an updated report. I'm not going to go through that, which gives you an indication as to where any particular bills are with the legislative process. The only thing that I'd like to highlight is the transportation package was passed by the Senate. As it moved to the House introduced an amendment to change the revenue component of the transportation package. So at this point, it's under consideration, and I don't know where will be the next steps. That's the biggest item that I would like to highlight on that legislative update. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions, comments, Commissioner Edwards?
No questions.
Questions, Commissioner Menzer?
No, thank you.
Okay. So moving on to briefing public hearing decisions pending. Item 1 is A7 Low Impact Development Code Amendment.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. This is a follow-up to the briefing that you received on February 3rd related to the code amendment related on the low impact development. That will be the A-7. There was a good conversation on that, and I believe Commissioner Menzer had several questions to staff. This memo before you is an attempt to clarify some of the questions that Commissioner Mensah had. This item was last week, and since Commissioner Mensah was unable to attend last week's meetings, that's what the item is for you today. I am not going to give you the background on this. I believe the board is well in tune and aware of this particular item for your consideration. So really at this point staff is ready to answer any questions that you may have.
Questions, Commissioner Edwards?
Well, the only thing I'd comment on is the old ordinance had a percentage amount in it, I believe, that we're adjusting, and this one doesn't. Is that right? Like 10% or something? Prior to 2016, it was 70%, I think. Then it was changed to 10%. And this one doesn't have anything to do with percent. And I'm just wondering if that doesn't restrict us too much. If we,
as you may recall on the briefing, if I may, and staff can elaborate on this, the percentage that you highlighted was related to how we can provide flexibilities to small lots under 2.5 acres, and that has been addressed.
okay, so this is addressed that?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Questions, Commissioner Mensah?
No, Josh organized a separate briefing with staff and I asked all the questions that I had. So I'm good to go with moving this forward. I understand the pieces I didn't understand before, I understand now. So happy to have this go to a public hearing.
Okay. Are you okay with that, Commissioner Edwards?
Yes, ma'am. Josh has done good.
Okay, so you have 3 thumbs up.
Okay, thank you. So next step will be for, you will see AIS to set up public hearing. So you will see public testimony on this. Thank you, commissioners.
Okay, next item is Mottman Complex from the briefing February 10th.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is related to, again, thank you for, as you stated, Madam Chair, the February 10th briefing where we provided staff provided the next steps as to how we need to continue on the Mottman Complex, the remodel and cost estimate. As a matter of perspective to the public, the Mottman Complex, we currently, the auditor's office, the ballot center of the auditor's office of election division uses one of the portions of one building. This complex includes 3 buildings. And when the briefing was provided to you, is what are the next steps that we need to do in terms of moving forward on the remodel of all 3 buildings? Certainly at that point, I understand it was a sticker shock as to what this will be. And the recommendation for you that we have today as to, for you not necessarily to approve the overall plan in terms of the expenditures, perhaps for you to consider to approve the next step in the process. And the next step in the process they will ask the board to consider is to approve begin the architectural and engineering activities. What we call is begin the design phase. So at least we keep moving forward in the process without the board committing to the larger cost that we provided to you back on January 10th. So within that, I'm just going to give the floor to Robin, if you'd like to elaborate and give us a perspective of this recommendation that we have for the board today.
Right. So as you may recall from the March 10th briefing, there are 3 buildings and our proposal is to remodel them in phases as the tenants move out and as our department units that are in leased space are at the end of those leases. So first up would be the building that the elections unit is in. That building is completely taken over, if you will, by the auditor's office. Now there are no other tenants in the building. And we could proceed with design in that building at a cost of $372,000. And at least that would be the next step. There is a more cost-effective alternative to move forward with the design on all three buildings. The combined cost for all three would be just under 700,000, but we could piece it up to keep the expenditures low as we move through the process and get a better handle on what the overall improvements will cost, as well as the health of the REIT fund. I am recommending that the board, in the long run, this would be a cost of the bond that we would issue this fall. And I've had conversations with our bond advisor on how that would work. And the board, when you approve the bond, you can approve backdating for a certain amount of time so that any work can be covered by the bond, which is how we would afford this, as well as all the other things you're contemplating from REIT. Be happy to answer any questions about any of this.
Questions, Commissioner Edwards?
Yes, it sounds like maybe there's a plan to prioritize, it sounds like. And what I'm wondering, we're doing a lot of this because of the COVID situation we've been dealing with over the last couple of years. And how can we utilize some COVID dollars to offset other tax dollars that we would use? Because we're gonna try to have spacing and all kinds of other things that are gonna be built into this. How much do we plan on taking out of COVID money versus other tax dollars?
So at this point in time, we did not plan on using any ARPA funds for this project. We could certainly look at that if you would like, and then we would need to have a discussion on what areas you would like to reduce, because as you may recall, your COVID funding is pretty much earmarked at this time. So we could reduce some other earmark to put some money toward this project. However, there are some, in the updated guidance from US Treasury, there are additional rules related to infrastructure that is not to be a direct benefit to the community, something like housing. So we would have to jump through quite a few hoops, not only for distancing, but to conduct infrastructure projects. There are a series of justifications that we would have to be able to, meet, criteria we would have to meet, and it would be difficult. But we have capacity in REIT.
Okay, can
I would also say that we are seeking grants that support elections in particular, as well as other infrastructure grants that could be used. It doesn't have to be recovery fund. We haven't secured any at this time.
Oh, okay. Can I get in there, Chair?
Yes, go ahead.
This is one of my issues in regard to the broadband expansion. I think we've set aside $5 million towards that particular project in some fashion. And I don't know that that dollar amount is right. Earlier, we talked about $500,000 of that being expended. But what I'm wondering about, it seems like we also had a conversation that in some of the president's proposal, I don't know if it's like Build Back Better or what it was, seemed like there was a lot of money coming towards broadband expansion for just what we're trying to do with our underserved community. And I'm wondering if we could maybe hold back that money that we've dedicated for that and use it for a better cause, because I believe there's going to be more money coming for broadband. And because there's a lot of in limbo on that whole process, I think we ought to reprioritize possibly on spending some of these dollars, and elections are very important, and we want to make sure we get it all right. So that's why I'm hesitant on this whole thing. I think there is other money, and that other money is already here, and we could reprioritize it possibly, and then hope to get funding out of the broadband move, if you will, both nationally and at the state level. So that's all, just food for thought.
Thank you. Questions, Commissioner Mensah?
Unmute here. No questions. I would support the phase 1 design. I do not support doing all of it right now for various reasons, but that's where I'm at.
Yeah, I'm in agreement with that. I support the design as well. And then I agree with Commissioner Edwards, as more funding becomes available for infrastructure projects, maybe we'll get lucky and there'll be additional funding that will be come through, and we can complete this. So I'm hoping that's the case, but I do agree with at least doing the phase 1. At least if more funding becomes available, we're ready for it.
We are absolutely seeking grants for these projects.
So what I'm
Thank you.
hearing, just to clarify, what I'm hearing, Commissioner Mensah, Commissioner Mejia would like to support the moving forward with $372,000 to begin the phase 1 of what we call the building 1 at this point. So I haven't heard Commissioner Edwards whether he'd like to support that strategy or not.
Yeah, I believe that I can support that strategy.
Thank you. So we're moving forward with the design phase.
That'll give us some more concrete figures to work with in the future.
That's exactly right.
For building 5 for an approximate amount of $372,000. Thank you.
So let's not put a building number on that, because there's a lot of confusion about which building is which number, but let's call it the elections building.
The elections building. Thank you. That's better.
Thank you.
Yes, they're numbered,
Yeah, thank you.
not in a very straightforward way. So, okay, moving on to Commissioner's item, HCP development.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. This is hopefully doesn't take too much of your time. This is the next step in the process. I believe the intent is to get to the point of getting an approved HCP and getting an incidental take permit. And this is just the next step. There is a letter before you. They outlines the next steps, and I'm gonna let Josh or Chris to walk us through this.
Great, thank you, County Manager. This will go pretty quick, I think. I've got Chris here to provide some technical perspective, but this is a milestone moment. If we are able to receive the board's thumbs up to submit the final HCP, this will be the step now in the process that gets us to that last phase of the federal government providing the ITP, the incidental take permit. And I just wanted to say thank you to staff. They've done an amazing job collaborating with the federal government and really pushing the board's request to reduce the cost of this to the applicants of Thurston County while protecting the environment of Thurston County. So this is huge. This is a big step. So with your thumbs up, we'll proceed. After the draft was provided, we went back and forth on some technical updates, and Chris is here to provide any more information on that. Chris, would you like to take it away?
Sure. We submitted the fourth draft in July of 2020, and that triggered the next steps in the HCP approval process, which was the development of the environmental impact statement. At the same time, the HCP document went through the legal and policy review at the regional office, along with the solicitor doing their review of the document. We did receive some comments and recommendations for some technical and legal edits, which we did accomplish. And I want to thank to express my appreciation to U.S. Fish and Wildlife, the Department Interior Solicitor, and our own attorney's office for helping us work through and develop this final habitat conservation plan. The edits are completed and the final document is ready for submission, as Josh mentioned. We did provide a cover memo for you all to review, as well as the application for this particular document. U.S. Fish and Wildlife is ready to receive this and move the process forward.
Big day. Any questions, Commissioner? Sorry.
Questions, Commissioner Edwards?
No, I just want to thank Josh and his staff for all their effort.
Commissioner Menser?
Do we know, I know we talked last year all about, first quarter or second quarter of 2022. Does that still look like what we're looking at, or do we know, does this milestone help us dial that date in a little tighter?
That's exactly right. For us, for the federal government to then provide the permit, we need to submit this final document. And so, it's not within our hands when they provide that permit, but the sooner we get this in, the sooner we can get that potential permit back from the federal government. So quarter two, it could be. And I would just also, though, remind the board that while we need the ITP, there's the two other pieces that are still working through the process. That's the approval of the implementing codes and ordinances that are working through the Planning Commission. That Planning Commission will actually be reviewing Wednesday evening. And that comes to the board for your review. And then the third is the land acquisition. And we're working really hard with Kidder Matthews on that strategy as well. So the piece that we're really excited about today, the milestone here, is submitting the final document to the federal government for potential receipt of the ITP, hopefully within quarter two. Thank you, Commissioner. Good question.
Good.
Thank you. No, it's exciting news. So with that, commissioners, 3 thumbs up.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you all very much. This is very exciting and very good news. Okay, moving on to COVID-19 restrictions.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. I have 3 items for you to discuss this morning. And if you allow me just to walk through each of those 3 items, I will provide my suggested next steps. And then and whether you agree or not, and that's is really up to you. So related to the indoor mask mandate, you already heard the perspective of Dr. Abdul-Malik. Based on the governor's new order, the mask mandates, as it relates to county offices, I want to concentrate on county offices, will most likely start implemented on Monday, March 14th, because the governor lapses the indoor masking on Friday, the March 11th at midnight. So also within that context, we need to wait for the Department of Labor and Industry to provide guidance as to how we're going to be implementing that new mandate. And that's really the umbrella that we need to wait to give us the tools as to how we're going to be informing employees of the new mandate. So that's one, is the waiting related to Illinois to provide the guidance for us to further understand what we need to do as a result of the governor's latest mandate. And that put us in the position to opening the boardroom in person. As I recall, at least 2 commissioners when decided to close the boardroom was 2 elements. One is the enforcement of the masking when the members of the public were coming in to provide in-person testimony. And the second at that time was the concern of the Omicron and how that transmission was going pretty high. You heard this morning and over the last two weeks, the Omicron curve is subsiding in a way. And also the mask mandate will be lifted, hopefully by the 14th. So my recommendation for the board is to open the boardroom coinciding on Monday, March 14th as well. And at that point will coincide the mask mandates, hopefully the Illinois guidance, and for you to open the boardroom at that time. I'll stop there before I provide my recommendation for the next item.
Okay, comments, questions? Commissioner Edwards?
Yes, I'm trying to get a clear date that we would, be mask-free if individuals want to be mask-free. I think anybody can wear a mask that wants to wear a mask. But my concern is that if the governor does this on the 11th and we implement it on Monday, the 14th, and then we find out, I don't know, the other group that's gonna oversee it, what industry? L&I. Well, we haven't got it settled yet. We haven't decided yet. I mean, I can see bureaucratic delays coming for months. And I don't want any more bureaucratic delays. I don't know if I can hold my breath when I don't wear a mask walking down the hall for all that time. Because this is crazy that we would not just say, okay, on the 14th, this is it. Trying to wait for a bureaucratic entity like L&I to come out with something, I have no faith in them whatsoever. So I really strongly am going to be objecting to continuing this mask mandate, if you will, after the 14th. I mean, if somebody wants to come in and work over the weekend, I guess they're here by themselves. But so that's my concern with that. That we don't have a definite date. I really think we ought to set a date so our employees know this is what's going to happen.
Robin, I saw your hand up.
I took it back down, Commissioner, but thank you.
Okay. Questions?
Perhaps Maria could talk about the county's duty as an employer to follow L&I rules.
Yeah, I'd be glad to do that. While I hear Commissioner Edward frustration, the county does have an obligation to follow L&I safety rules. So even absent the county's masking mandate, if L&I puts that into their regulations, we are obligated to follow it, and failure to do so could cause them to come in and do safety inspections, and they could lobby findings against us. So my recommendation is that we continue to be patient and let them issue their updates. From what I've heard yesterday during the governor's press conference is that L&I is actively working on it. So I am hopeful that it will be sooner than later, because it does cause a lot of questions. But at the end of the day, L&I we do have to meet their mandates above all.
And it's not just for the counties, for all employers. They're looking forward to the guidance for L&I. So I'm extremely optimistic. I believe the L&I will issue the guidance hopefully this week, by the end of this week. So next Tuesday, I will report back to the board as to whether we have heard L&I from L&I related to the new guidance in alignment to the governor's mandate. So, but at this point, I'd recommend to shoot for the 14th. I think this is good indication that everything will just align to that. If hopefully nothing changes, but if something is in the horizon that might jeopardize that date, I will bring the board up to speed next week.
Questions, Commissioner Munster?
Oh, I support the county manager's recommendation on that, on those two items, and Maria's suggestions.
Okay. Yes, and I'm open. In support of that as well.
No, I'm not, but go ahead. It's a democratic process. I challenge the L&I folks myself. I'd like to make a statement somehow that they're, but I respect the process.
Okay, thank you, sir. Now the third item, and I think that's going to take a little time, the vaccination and testing requirements. This is related to the resolution 16067. And and let me provide a perspective. The state has a vaccination requirement to all state employees. And the governor has aligned the mandate to lapse at the same time when the emergency declaration lapses. So at the state level, when the governor lapse or rescinds the current emergency declaration, that automatically will rescind the state's requirement for vaccination for state employees. My recommendation for you today is to align to that process, meaning the vaccination and testing requirements they will have for county employees to be aligned to the local emergency declaration the board has exercised. So the current local emergency declaration ends at June 30th, 2022. And if the board considers aligning this mandate to that, when that lapses, this particular resolution also will lapse and this no longer will be implemented. The reason as to why I suggest this, I think, is more an objective approach. If the governor rescinds the state emergency, let's say in 2 weeks, then I will bring this matter to your attention for you to consider rescinding that local emergency to be aligned on the same approach. And as a result, this resolution will lapse as well. So that's really the proposal that I have for you at this point, is to align the resolution 16067, which is the vaccination requirements and testing requirements for county employees, to the local emergency, which at this point is scheduled to lapse and at the end of June 30th, I believe, 2022.
Question, comments, Commissioner Edwards?
Yes, I'm also ready to have this lapse. I wanted it to lapse yesterday or last month or whatever, but here we are. And I think we are being completely punitive to our employees that we are requiring to pay for a test. We are going out, as far as I know, almost daily, offering free tests to the public, and yet we're making our employees pay for that same test. And I just think that is the pits. That's the best way I can put it. So that's where I'm at on the whole thing. I think we need to get rid of this testing, or at least if we're gonna do the testing, let's pay for it. I think we've punished our employees plenty enough.
Questions, Commissioner Menzer?
Really struggled with this particular issue, thinking it through. I wanted to ask, I guess I have questions for Dr. Abdulmalik and for Maria, because I wasn't, starting with Maria, I wasn't really, we weren't there on the front lines with you and Debbie with the union negotiations and what the considerations were. And so we landed a certain place. And of course, there's people that didn't like that decision. But I guess the question is, had we landed another place, there'd be another group of people that weren't happy with the decision. And maybe you're in a better position to kind of preview for us what the considerations are. So for example, if we just said, you know what, it's not making sense, whatever Commissioner Edwards said there, it's costing money, it's Omicron spreading really fast, and doesn't, weekly testing's not, for whatever medical reason, whatever, we get rid of it. What will we hear from employees, that we're not hearing today, who will be upset with that decision? What will be the arguments that will be made by what groups? Not specifically, but just generically. Can you give us any kind of, shed any light on that based on what you've heard and from the negotiations that you've had?
To be honest, once we've got the policy implemented and the testing in place, there's been not a whole lot of feedback from employees. There's a handful that have raised issues with continuing the testing, especially when Omicron happened and both vaccinated and not vaccinated were testing positive. One of the reasons that we decided to bring an on-site provider was that back in October, November, getting tested in the community was really tough. There were not a lot of tests just readily available. And so in order for us to make it possible for our employees to actually be in compliance with the policy, we brought the testing vendor in. And so we negotiated around that, and we have different agreements based on the different bargaining units. So I'm not sure if that answers your question completely. I think what we would need to do is either invite our union partners to have more discussions around it, but I really haven't gotten a lot of, frankly, haven't received a whole lot of feedback, except from a couple of employees.
I guess I'm thinking though, like, do you anticipate that a group of employees will come and say, you know, numbers are still really high. I mean, you know, 600 and something, that's half of what it was last week, but triple what it was, you know, during Delta or whatever. Is the testing providing some measure of, the testing for unvaccinated employees providing some measure of comfort or something? I mean, I'm not saying that any of that's legitimate. I'm just saying, what will we hear from people if we were to reverse course the way it was being proposed? Are we going to have just as many people angry from a different perspective is what I'm getting at.
There will be individuals that will be very concerned. We have, as you know, a really high number of vaccinated employees. And so I think that that demonstrates a concern and a willingness to take whatever steps to stop the spread and to not get the virus. So yeah, I mean, we will get employees that will be concerned about the potential of non-symptomatic, because the purpose of the surveillance testing was try to capture non-symptomatic employees from coming in to the workplace. So with that, yes, we're, you know, everybody's on one side or the other. And so we just take their input and negotiate and have the discussions. And of course, we are always relying on our local healthcare professionals to guide us.
Chair?
Dr. I wasn't quite done, sir.
Yeah, okay.
Dr. Abdul-Malik, can I ask you, you know, one of the motivations was to get our employees, you know, as vaccinated as possible, because that was and continues to be an important, you know, protective step. And we got to whatever it was, 93%, I think is what I heard, something like that.
I'd say it's close to 97. Our numbers are really high.
Okay, so 97%, then that really accomplished something. And now we've got 3% that are testing once a week. Omicron then became, you know, in the middle of, Omicron became something that transmitted faster is what I understood, which made, you know, weekly was already, you know, kind of a compromise with our employees, trying to keep costs low for them and keep the system simple and keep, you know, just trying to really be, I felt like a compromise with those folks. Omicron kind of made that probably less effective than even it was before, you know, weekly testing versus twice a week, or, you know, because it spread faster. I guess, given our 97% now and Omicron being what it is, are we getting more, are we continuing to have value out of continuing this policy through June 30th, for example, as the county manager has suggested? Or are we not, you know, I really believe we got value out of this policy in the fall, but are we sitting here in March 1st getting enough value to continue, in your view?
So that's a good question. What I will say is that the protective effect of weekly testing really does vary with transmission rates. And as transmission rates decline, the value of weekly testing can potentially decline. We're still in a target range So there's been a lot of updating of the data, especially with the new CDC guidance that came out on Friday. We're still, so based on the CDC's current data and as well as DOH's data, we are in the substantial to high transmission range in terms of COVID-19 transmission here in Thurston. In terms of where the CDC having looked at surveillance or screening testing, which is what this particular program would be, when it's used, the recommendation is for moderate and moderate to high transmission. So as far as the CDC guidance, that's where it falls. We would still be in a situation where the CDC would suggest that there's where screening testing is possible, there may still be some benefit.
Is there a projection for us as to when we'll be out of that range? Based on our number trends? I mean, I know it's just speculative, but
so we're still trending data. It would take me a little bit of time and reaching out to partners to try to get some of that projection data.
okay, I'll pass back to you, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. And my comments are in regards to, I mean, I've heard from several other jurisdictions how they're using Thurston County as an example on basically how well we did. And so I want to give kudos to staff, to Debbie and to Maria, because in the end, other jurisdictions want what we have and what we've been able to establish. I know unions are saying, well, why don't you do what Thurston County did? And Thurston County employees got, this better perk. So I honestly thought we did a good job. And I've also heard from employees who are still not comfortable. And, I understand, and I hear them on that. So I'm okay with aligning our vaccination requirements to our emergency order as Ramiro suggested. And then Commissioner Edwards, you had additional comments?
Yes, I guess I'd like to point out that the president has a program where you can get free tests mailed to you. I think he's got 200 million kits or something I heard on the news recently that people have not chosen to utilize for whatever reason. So maybe we could get some of those kits. And all I want to do is, okay, if you guys want to keep the testing going, at least make it free to our employees. We do it free to our citizens. You can get free tests in the mail from the federal government. Let's just recognize whatever test is utilized as good enough instead of the punishment portion of taking money out of their limited paychecks. We've got inflation that's eating their paychecks up, and we're still charging them once a week for a test. And many of these transmissions that are taking place now are being brought into the office by vaccinated employees and passed around, because now it's become very apparent that the vaccination, that it doesn't keep you from getting this virus, it keeps you from having a bad outcome from the virus. So we're all still going to get it, apparently. The outcome is going to be better, apparently, if we're vaccinated. So why do we keep punishing our employees by forcing them to do out of pocket when there's a lot of different other ways that we could do it and still accomplish, which I feel is very limited benefit by the testing, because you've got people that are passing this on that are vaccinated. So that's kind of where I'm at on unanimous.
I want to do a time check, and I don't want to go around in circles, just because we still have one more matter on our agenda, or 3 more. So with that, any further discussion on this?
Can we continue this for next? I mean, I'm not ready to vote today to scrap the whole program. And so could we continue this discussion next Tuesday?
Yep.
Given that we're completely out of time?
Yeah, I will bring this matter next week. And again, my recommendation still stands. So I will bring the same recommendation to you next Tuesday morning.
Okay. So more to come on that. Okay, with that, item 3 is public testimony.
I have nothing for you, Madam Chair.
Okay, and then other commissioner items.
I think
And
we're
we
gonna
have-
forego this.
I'm like, we have a commissioner's check-in on Thursday, so I ask that you hold them. Okay, with that, there is another executive session. And how long is this executive session set to last, Ramiro?
I think I promise going to be no more than 10 minutes. This is going to be just informational.
Okay, so with that, we'll go into executive session for 10 minutes for RCW 42.30.110 subsection 1B to consider the selection of a site or the acquisition of real estate by lease or purchase when public knowledge regarding such consideration would cause a likelihood of increased price, hotel purchase. Are we on?
You're live.
Go ahead.
Okay, and we are back from executive session. We were in executive session for RCW 42.30.110 subsection 1B to consider the selection of a site or the acquisition of real estate by lease or purchase when public knowledge regarding such consideration would cause a likelihood of increased price, hotel purchase. And no commissioner's action follows. Is that correct?
That is correct, ma'am.
Okay, and so with that, we are adjourned and we'll be back at 2.
Thank you.
Thank you.